Thousands of years before the Mayflower arrived in what is today the United States, humans were already living in California. For thousands more years, they had developed impressive cultures, only to have them destroyed by outside forces. Welcome back to Rotundo Productions. Today's episode, we will explore the ancient history of the land that is today the state of California. If you love history and how it helps up, please hit the like button to promote it. California is today well known for its technology, entertainment industries, diverse population, and some of the best weather on Earth. But throughout much of its history, the people who lived there struggled just to survive in a harsh environment. The first inhabitants of the area that is today California were hunter-gatherers who crossed the Bering Strait land bridge from Siberia during the last Ice Age around 12,000 years ago. With them, they brought dogs, which would help them hunt the woolly mammoths, saber-toothed cats, giant ground sloths, and other large mammals that roamed the land. The climate at the time was cooler and drier than it is now, with most of the rain falling in the winter months. This led to the formation of large herds of animals and made the hunting of big game feasible. By 8000 BC, the glaciers had melted and the sea level rose, inundating much of the land that was previously dry. This led to the extinction of many of the large mammals in California and forced the surviving humans to adapt to a new way of life. They began to rely more on fishing and gathering plants for food and developed new technologies to help them survive. For example, they invented the spear thrower, which could be used to more effectively hunt fish and smaller game. They also developed new tools made out of bone and shell. By 5000 BC, the climate began to warm and dry out even more, leading to the formation of the Great Basin Desert. This, along with the introduction of domesticated plants and animals from Mexico, led to the development of the first cultures in California. These cultures were small and nomadic, and their members moved from place to place following the herds and the fish. They lived in small family groups and were organized into tribes, each with its own language and customs. Some of the best known of these early cultures include the Chumash, the Hopi, the Mono, and the Washoe. As the centuries passed, these cultures continued to thrive despite the challenges presented by the environment. They developed sophisticated social and political systems and made great works of art. For example, the Chumash people built large canoes made out of reeds that allowed them to travel up and down the coast. They also developed a system of writing that is still not fully understood by experts today. However, by the 1700s, these cultures were on the decline. The Spanish had arrived in California and were in the process of conquering the land. The Spanish were able to defeat the indigenous peoples with ease, in part because of their superior weapons and armor, but also because of the diseases brought over from Europe that the natives had no resistance to. As a result, many of the native peoples were killed or enslaved, and their cultures were destroyed. But despite the Spanish conquest, the indigenous peoples of California did not disappear. Many of them survived by assimilating into the Spanish colonial society or by hiding in the remote areas of the state. And although their cultures were suppressed, their traditions and customs lived on in the hearts and minds of the people. In the 1800s, as California became more and more settled by non-native peoples, these indigenous cultures began to re-emerge. The Spanish were replaced by the Mexican government and then by the United States, and the various tribes were given small reservations where they could live according to their own customs. Today, there are more than 100 federally recognized tribes in California with more than 700,000 members. Their cultures are still very much alive and well, and they continue to play an important role in California society. While the indigenous peoples of California were able to survive for thousands of years in a harsh environment, the Spanish were able to conquer the land with relative ease. The Spanish first arrived in California in the 1500s. But it wasn't until the mid-1700s that they began to explore the interior of the state. This was due in part to the discovery of gold in the Sacramento Valley, which led to the establishment of the first Spanish mission in 1772. Over the next few decades, the Spanish built a total of 21 missions in California, which served as both religious and economic centers. These missions were run by Catholic friars who sought to convert the indigenous peoples to Christianity. However, the friars also used the indigenous peoples as a source of cheap labor, and many of them died from mistreatment and disease. Despite this, the Spanish were able to successfully convert many of the indigenous peoples to Christianity and suppress their traditional religions. As the Spanish missions grew in power, so did the wealth of the Spanish crown. The missions produced large amounts of food, especially grain, which was exported to other parts of the empire. They also produced leather goods, textiles, and other products that were in high demand. In addition, the missions received large donations from wealthy Spaniards who hoped to gain favor with the church. Unfortunately, the Spanish Empire was unable to hold on to its wealth for long. By the early 1800s, the empire was in decline and the Mexican War of Independence had broken out. On September 27, 1821, Mexico declared its independence from Spain, and California became part of the new nation. However, Mexico's hold on California was tenuous at best. The vast majority of the land was still owned by the Spanish crown, and the Mexican government was unable to enforce its laws effectively. This led to a period of lawlessness and violence in California, which lasted until the United States took over the territory in 1848. With the arrival of the Americans, California entered a new era of growth and prosperity. Gold was discovered in 1848, which led to a massive influx of settlers. The population of California grew from about 90,000 in 1850 to over 300,000 in 1860. This rapid growth led to the development of new cities and towns, as well as the construction of new transportation and communication systems. In addition, the American government invested heavily in California, in part because of its strategic importance on the Pacific. The government built forts and other military installations throughout the state, as well as roads, bridges, and other public works. All of this investment helped to make California one of the most prosperous states in the Union. And while California has grown and changed a lot since then, its ancient history is still very much a part of who we are today. The indigenous peoples of California were able to survive for thousands of years in a harsh environment, and their cultures thrived despite the challenges they faced. The Spanish were able to conquer the land with relative ease, but they were eventually replaced by the Mexicans and then the Americans. Gold was discovered in 1848, which led to a massive influx of settlers and the development of new cities and towns. Today, California is one of the most populous and prosperous states in the Union. Its ancient history is still very much a part of who we are today. From the earliest days of the hunters and gatherers to the present day, the people of California have always been at the forefront of exploration, innovation, and change. As we move forward, we can be sure that the history of California will continue to be full of surprises and discoveries. What are your thoughts on the ancient history of California? Let me know in the comments below, or tell me another place to research with the help of AI. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and may we all be enlightened by what we learn.